It's said that reality is often stranger than fiction.
Joaquin is just kind of an enigma.
And after diving deeper into one of Hollywood's most reclusive talents,
when we were on set, he never looked at you.
I think I'm starting to believe it.
I don't want to play the character of Joaquin anymore.
What if there was a genius behind the controversy?
There's a lot of pot smoking for that character. Did you prepare for the role?
I actually started preparing in the late 90s.
One that seemingly rivaled or even exceeded the characters he's portrayed on screen.
Shut the up, dude. And I know you started the share thing, Larry.
Who's Larry?
I have a strong inclination to believe he wasn't just born this way.
They said that I was emotional and intense and complicated.
Rather, he's a product of what is possibly one of the craziest lives a Hollywood star has ever lived.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
If you say so, kid, Joker it is.
Hate me or like me, just don't misunderstand me.
The year is 1974. It's the peak of the counterculture movement. All across the world, there's this wave of free thinkers who are all in pursuit of finding some sort of spiritual awakening.
We're doing the hardest work in the world because we're growing, we're trying to change.
But our story begins far away from the glitz and glam of Hollywood and the bustling streets of Los Angeles. Over 3,000 miles away in Puerto Rico, Joaquin Raphael Phoenix is born. But this wasn't your typical childhood. The third of 5 children, a homeschooled Joaquin would be exposed to a more nomadic lifestyle, traveling through South America and the Caribbean islands alongside his immediate family. Joaquin's parents were missionaries, and amidst the booming counterculture movement of the 70s, they began preaching the word of a newfound religion.
Power to the Lord! Lord Jesus!
Those in pursuit of community and purpose were drawn to this brainchild of David Berg.
The children of God depend on Him to provide all their earthly needs. There is no private property. New members must sign over all goods and income to the group.
The Children of God promoted a return to the basics of Christianity, emphasizing a need for love and raising awareness for what they believed was the imminent return of Jesus Christ. Joaquin and his family spent most of his early years preaching this gospel and would often sing and perform in the streets, both to stay afloat and as a way to effectively spread these teachings.
When they are not studying the Bible, the children of God are often traveling. They liken themselves to the early apostles.
But as the years went by, this mask of perpetual love and spiritual purpose slowly began to slip.
Is your daughter in the Children of God?
Yes.
Do you consider she's held against her will?
Yes.
Whispers emerged of some unsettling practices.
Now called the Family of Love, a judge is to make public his findings on the cult after listening to months of evidence in a ward of court case.
But the reality that was uncovered was in fact much darker.
There would be instances in which we would have to portray God's love in a physical way.
See, Berg would communicate with his followers via audio recordings and cartoon drawings known as Mo letters. He equated sex to another form of love, and since love was God, no one was exempt from partaking. After all, who was to deny God's prophet?
Why did he need it so bad? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
The Phoenix family would grow disillusioned with the group, and in the late 1970s would make the decision to leave the cult. The family would return to the United States and opt to change their last names to Phoenix, symbolizing a new beginning. They were seeking rebirth and settled in California, far away from the dark shadows cast by their former cult. The allure of Hollywood was undeniable. This was their potential for reinvention.
But we're missing the big football game.
Relax! My VHS home video recorder is taping it right now. Watch.
Terrific!
I feel that their opportunities are just amazing, the things that they've gotten to do and the people that they have met along the way.
It was around this time that Joaquin grew irritated by his birth name and began going by Leaf, opting to match the nature theme of his siblings, River and Rain. And whatever creative outlet his older siblings would pursue, Joaquin would eagerly follow.
Taking a cue from their older brother, the other kids put their heads together and decided acting seemed like a pretty good idea.
The family already had a rich background in art and music, music, gradually cultivated over their missionary days. It was a natural fit. Unfortunately, it wasn't all ideal. Initially, like your typical artist in pursuit of their dreams, they struggled to support themselves. Their mother was a secretary at NBC and their father a landscaper, hardly the nepotism needed for a skyrocket to stardom. But the saving grace for the family would come in the form of the oldest sibling.
For Phoenix, acclaim was never what he was after.
For me, being true is all I can do. The stylists with the wardrobe and the hairdos and the poses, this and that, and all the stuff that isn't me.
We got along pretty good.
Great.
We got along like brothers, kind of.
We kind of had our bad moments too, but just like the movie. And it's only natural when you're with these guys for 2-3 months.
River would land a few roles here and there, but his big break came via Rob Reiner's classic Stephen King adaptation, Stand By Me.
When River came back from around the corner to film that scene, he had this emotional weight around him.
Just imagine that I could go someplace where nobody knows me.
The film was a commercial success and would help him land follow-up roles in the films The Mosquito Coast and Running on Empty. The norm for child actors back then was delivering quirky sitcom dialogue, but the roles that drew River in were those that required more authentic and intense performances. Pair this with his good looks, recent Oscar nomination, and humble off-screen persona.
You're glad you didn't win?
Yeah. Kevin is much more deserving.
He began gaining tremendous recognition. The family had been barely able to afford funding the creative pursuits of each kid, but River provided the stability necessary for a pathway to success. Joaquin would eagerly follow in his older brother's footsteps. He'd land a few roles here and there, but after his appearance in the 1989 Ron Howard film Parenthood, he'd lose the spark he initially had.
As I became a teenager, I wasn't interested in the kind of roles that were available to teenagers at that time.
River would pick up on this lack of motivation.
When I was 15 or 16, my brother River came home from work and he had a VHS copy of a movie called Raging Bull. And he sat me down and made me watch it. The next day he woke me up and he made me watch it again. And he said, "You're gonna start acting again. This is what you're gonna do."
River, having been more exposed to the darker aspects of the entertainment industry, knew the monsters that had lied dormant behind every shady manager or manipulative agent. Hollywood was eagerly awaiting to take advantage of an unsuspecting youth.
As far as fans and all that sort of stuff, they have to be reminded that you're not a commodity.
The pressure of being the main provider was immense. Pair this with a media hell-bent on generating views at the expense of his peace of mind, and what you get is almost inevitable.
I remember watching River and thinking, it was such a brilliant light, but it seems so delicate.
These demons would manifest themselves in the form of substance abuse, and while River may not have been able to stomach the turmoil that came with fame, he could at least be the protector his younger siblings needed. While not a lot is known about their personal lives behind the scenes, it's so well documented that River was especially protective of his younger brother. This guidance helped shield Joaquin during his developmental years, but during his late teens, it became clear that his older brother had been in the midst of a difficult battle, one that would come to its boiling point on the night of October 30th, 1993.
Actor River Phoenix stumbled out of this trendy sunset nightclub known as the Viper Room.
When he collapsed, his brother called 911.
He didn't have a heartbeat, didn't have a pulse.
He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where police say he died 50 minutes later.
River Phoenix was 23.
River's passing sent shockwaves through both the media and Hollywood alike, but none had it more difficult than the members of his immediate family.
The media wouldn't let not only River rest, but they wouldn't let his family rest.
The media had helped create the environment necessary for the seemingly inevitable tragedy, but they weren't satisfied, refusing to give anyone their privacy and the proper time to grieve.
During that time in which you're most vulnerable, there are helicopters flying over, there are people that are trying to sneak onto your land.
The 911 call of Joaquin pleading with dispatch while his brother lay on the ground was also played on airwaves time and time again. And if it wasn't the media, it was the conspiracy theorists spinning the narrative that his death was actually planned, or that he's not even dead at all, as is common with famous individuals gone way before their prime.
Certainly for me, it felt like it impeded on the mourning process.
The family would escape the frenzy by fleeing to Costa Rica. So great was his frustration with the media and the pain mourning from Rivers' passing that Joaquin would decide to take a leave of absence, completely disappearing from the industry for nearly 2 years. His resurgence would come in 1995 when he was cast in the critically acclaimed Gus Van Sant film To Die For. This provided the foundation needed for a proper return. But would he live up to the standard that River had set for him? Or would he constantly be left in the shadow of his older brother? Fortunately for Joaquin, I don't think he cared. See, he wasn't trying to compete for relevancy or trying to carve his own path too distant from that of his older brother. This pursuit was every bit Rivers as it was his. They adored one another.
I think that he just gave me a lot of confidence and was just insistent that it was something that I was going to do. It was hard to deny it because he seemed so certain.
Now with a new wind beneath the wings of his career, Joaquin would snag a few notable roles alongside the likes of Liv Tyler and Sean Penn. But his breakthrough into the upper echelon of Hollywood came alongside Russell Crowe in the 2000 mega hit film Gladiator.
You wrote to me once, listing the 4 chief virtues. As I read the list, I knew I had none of them. But I have other virtues, Father. Ambition. That can be a virtue when it drives us to excel.
Commodus was exactly the role he needed. Joaquin brought an obscurity to the big screen. He was seemingly awkward, snarky, and at times even combative.
Economic environmental impact in these troubled times?
Excuse me? You're so much fun. You know what? I think our interviews will last about 2 seconds.
I know.
But not without reason. This was just his genuine nature. He wasn't willing to accommodate the insensitive aspects of Hollywood. This allowed him to be more in tune with his vulnerability, and what resulted was a performance that nearly stole the show. Garnering unanimous praise from both the critics and fans alike. Commodus was the perfect way to bring in the new millennium, and what would follow would be like the equivalent of Jordan's run from 91 to 98. I mean, I don't even know where to start. You've got a supporting role in 2002's Signs, which grossed $400 million worldwide, a lead in 2003's Brother Bear, which did $250 million, another M. Night Shyamalan box office mega film in The Village, which did another $250 million, and then the tear-jerking Ladder 49, a film released during an era of peak patriotism. Mind you, this was the early 2000s. Inflation wasn't nearly what it used to be, and streaming was dismissed as just another fad. The cinema was the place to be. Then to wrap it up, you've got one of the most successful and critically acclaimed biopics ever made.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. Who would ever have thought that I will pay. Who'd ever thought that I'd win in the comedy or musical category?
Walk the Line was his second Oscar nomination in 5 years, and this performance was legendary.
That's the kind of song that truly saves people.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
Though it didn't come without its cost.
Do I have a large frog in my hair?
No.
Something's crawling out of my scalp.
In order to better understand the famed singer, Joaquin would take a more method approach, upping his alcohol usage to the point where he'd formed a habit, one that could spell disaster for his career. To his detriment, this habit would continue, culminating on a windy Los Angeles side road one Thursday afternoon.
I see one man upside down, fiddling with his cigarette lighter, deathly pale in his face. I recognized him, it was Joaquin. And I said to him, man, relax. And he said, I am relaxed. And I said, can I have your cigarette lighter? So he wouldn't give it to me, so I distracted him, snatched it away, because there was gasoline dripping.
Shortly after the accident, Phoenix would check himself into rehab and begin attending AA meetings. Unsurprisingly, he hails it as one of the best decisions he's ever made. One of his most confusing, though, seemed to come rather abruptly and after the arrival of a few critically well-received films.
Is it really your last film?
Yeah. There's a, it's like greener pastures, you know what I mean? And so I'm just gonna try and I'll just be doing the other thing, you know what I mean? And hopefully I'll emotionally impact you with that as well.
You almost couldn't wish for a steeper career trajectory, so this came as a shock to nearly everyone in the industry.
Now for the first time, I'm doing something that is, whether you like it or not, it really represents me.
He was obscure, sure, but to quit now, at his absolute peak, and to pursue an entirely different genre in hip-hop music just seemed to come completely out of the blue.
You can bet on that. I'm still real. I won't heal.
His appearance on Letterman would mark the first major moment in this switch to his new pursuit. But this was anything but the sort of press you'd hope for. This interview lives in infamy for a reason, and the reclusiveness and almost insulting nature of Joaquin's new direction would invoke a more confrontational David Letterman.
All right, you're doing fine.
Thanks. High praise coming from you. I'll come to your house and chew gum.
Okay, I don't have to chew the gum.
No, just relax.
I won't chew the gum.
Joaquin, I'm sorry you couldn't be here tonight.
But if it was all one big ruse, like a large portion of the internet seemed to think, it looked like a lot of big names were in on it.
I mean, why'd you want to do hip hop? You think it's funny? You're not like making like, you know, like, yo, what up? You don't be doing none of that when I'm not around, right?
No.
It seemed like Phoenix, for nearly 2 years, was giving into every vice superstardom had to offer.
Hey, honey. My name's Anthony. I was looking for a little bit of company. 2 girls for 6.
As it would turn out, the internet critics had been right all along. Phoenix would announce a collaborative effort alongside Casey Affleck for a mockumentary called I'm Still Here. Filmed over a 2-year period, it would chronicle his new character's attempts at pursuing a career as a hip-hop artist, hence the collaborative efforts in odd direction.
I wanted to explore what I thought would be a very interesting period in his life. I knew that he said he didn't want to act anymore and he wanted to try doing music. Now right there, I had no idea sort of what exactly was going to happen and all that would unfold.
The kicker, though, was that almost all of this was improvised. Aside from maybe a meeting or two, everything Joaquin did was at the whim of his new character, making for quite the unpredictable experience. One that, fortunately, unlike the earlier role of Johnny Cash, left his discipline still intact.
And then a year and a half ago, you come out, and honestly, it's like you slipped and hit your head in the tub.
But I apologize. I didn't. I hope I didn't offend you in any way.
No. I was not offended.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it was so much fun. It was batting practice. You know what I mean?
Though this stunt of his would eat up a tremendous amount of his effort and time, he had almost no trouble landing another successful film in Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. The film garnered widespread critical acclaim.
Maybe hurt a man, I think. Maybe he's dead, I don't know. Where? In Salinas, he stole a batch of my booze and he drank it.
Resulting in his 3rd Oscar nomination and re-cementing his status in the industry. Simultaneously, and unknown to him at the time, he'd accept the role that would change the entire course of his life.
Mr. Theodore Twombly, welcome to the world's first artificially intelligent operating system.
Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
Her is my favorite Joaquin Phoenix film. I could talk for hours about the gorgeous color scheme or the calming Arcade Fire soundtrack, but Joaquin Phoenix is not so far off from the character of Theodore. He's a homebody and an individual with a tendency to love deeply despite being starved of emotional intimacy.
Samantha?
Hi, sweetheart.
Joaquin hasn't been in a public long-term relationship since the 90s, and while flings are commonplace in such a fast-paced industry, it's human nature to begin craving something more.
There's something that feels so good about sharing your life with somebody.
He would find this spark in the form of a co-star, and where Theodore's love life would fail...
You always wanted me to be this light, happy, bouncy, everything's fine LA wife, and that's just not me.
Joaquin's would thrive.
Wow, here we are.
He developed quite the crush on Rooney over the course of filming, and had initially thought that she despised him, but in reality, she was just incredibly shy and equally as infatuated.
You're very shy, and for such a terrific actor, you get shy sometimes when the attention is on you.
This was exactly the type of balance he was looking for. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Phoenix says, "She's the only girl I ever looked up on the internet. We were just friends, email friends. I'd never done that, never looked up a girl online." This love would blossom over the years, especially on the set of 2016's Mary Magdalene, and for the first time in May of 2017, they'd make their first public appearance at the Cannes Film Festival, where, in a complete surprise to him, he'd win Best Actor for his role in You Were Never Really Here. career. The couple are very outspoken activists. Joaquin has been a lifelong vegan, and Rooney has steered clear of animal products since around 2011. They seem to be ideal for one another. Alongside balancing his love life, Joaquin would take on a number of more less acknowledged roles, but nonetheless critically acclaimed. His most career-defining role would come during the midst of an ongoing political turmoil.
Protests turned violent across America.
Heavy security at a special New York screening last night of the controversial movie Joker.
There could be potential violence at theaters that are showing the film.
Neither the fictional character Joker nor the film is an endorsement of real-world violence of any kind.
Todd Phillips would provide the blueprint for his anti-establishment and gritty Joker, but Phoenix, true to his name, would bring it to life.
All I have are negative thoughts, but you don't listen anyway.
To say this film was controversial seems like a massive understatement, but despite the criticisms and analysis, the Academy would see it differently.
And the Oscar goes to Joaquin Phoenix, Joker.
In the crowd, of course, would be his true love, and he didn't hold back during his acceptance speech.
And I do not feel elevated above any of my fellow nominees or anyone in this room.
Opting to prioritize activism over self-praise.
Whether we're talking about gender inequality or racism or queer rights or indigenous rights or animal rights, we're talking about the fight against injustice.
But this wasn't the highlight of his life, I'm sure. Rather, it would come a number of months later in late summer, when he'd become a father for the first time. His son's name?
I guess everything's related, and so that's why everything's just so important.
River.
I mean, everything about them, says, this can't happen. So I think because of that, it does.
Joaquin is of course extremely private about his personal life, and since his 2020 Oscar win, has opted to take a more indie route. He's essentially proven himself at this point beyond any rational criticism, preferring to take the more creatively fulfilling roles in an industry currently filled with a ton of noise. With a second Joker film, a Napoleon biopic, and a few other projects in the works, there'll be no shortage of performances from the man himself. And with that said, I'll leave you with my favorite moment from his Oscar speech.
When he was 17, my brother wrote this lyric. He said, "Run to the rescue with love and peace will follow." Thank you.